Hi all, and thank you very much for joining me for what is now episode number 18 of the Mantell Associates Network. I am joined today by Care, who is the CEO of Amniotics, which is a cell and gene therapy organization, which is based out of Sweden and dealing often in Denmark as well. The company is still a smaller business, just like Mantell Associates, which has been growing through COVID, and I know that Care has had some huge experiences for all of that. So Kev, thank you so much for joining us today and for coming on to Mantell Associates Network. Would you mind just talking us through kind of Amniotics as a business, your journey, how it was founded, and all that sort of stuff, please?
Certainly, Alexander, and thank you for inviting me here.
Pleasure.
So you could say, if I should start a bit about what Amniotics is, you could say it kind of comes back to the name, which stems from amniotic fluid. So what we do as a company is that we harvest amniotic fluid from plant C-sections, then we transport it to our facilities. We have a GMP manufacturing authorization for producing cells and products. There we isolate the cells and select them for the different tissues, because you could say the neonate inside the uterus will be in contact with the amniotic fluid, and the cells of that tissue will be sloughed off into the fluid. And hence we have the ability to select these cells, expand them, and put them into vials ready for clinical trials and later on for market. Amazing. So that is the basis of Amniotics, and we've of course done all we can to protect our full process with patents across, enabling us to really have a broad patent portfolio. So this is, you could say, the basis of Amniotics. It comes out of Lund University. It was started in 2015, so it's still a quite young company. And the last year to two, we've really been expanding and growing quite rapidly. As you say, we are still a small company, but really we've been able to grow especially our production area, because we have gotten the permits for producing our products and being a GMP certified facility, meaning that we can produce this product. So that is really what we do and how we escalate our processes and work through that.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you. And you mentioned there that it's been the last 1 to 2 years that you guys have really been able to grow and expand, which is, ironically enough, the last year we've been in a global pandemic for COVID-19. How have you guys been able to do that when a lot of companies are struggling?
Yeah, you could say to begin with, actually, our focus was on idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. That was the indication we were driving towards, and our most advanced product was for that indication. We have a product we call PulmoStem for that indication, so lung relevant MSCs for that indication. And then you could say, with COVID coming, we kind of shifted and said, okay, we have certainly idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, but there's certainly also elements of MSCs that can be used in inflammation diseases, inflammatory disorders. So you could say refocusing from IPF to COVID-19, severe to moderate COVID-19. It's also kind of resembling what's called acute respiratory distress syndrome. So you could say shifting gears from one indication to another indication, not meaning that we've left behind idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, but kind of put a halt on it. Because you could say in the present climate, not a lot of these patients will come to hospitals and get the treatment. So in the present climate, it makes good sense to do that. And that, you could say, also meant that we've been able to accelerate even further than where we were at that stage.
Huge congratulations. And obviously with, it reminds me a lot of Mantell Associates as well, because when the pandemic hit, we of course started doing far more work in the vaccine space, in cell and gene therapy, in viral vectors, because that simply is the area which is booming right now and actually needs support the most. Obviously, for you having to change almost the kind of strategy of the Amniotics business to move is one challenge. What other challenges have you faced being the CEO before COVID and also during it as well? And how have you overcome them?
You could say one very practical issue is that I'm a Dane working in Sweden, so trying to cross across the countries and trying to get cross the borders have actually been sometimes a bit of a hassle and trying to get that going.
Yeah.
So and you can really, especially in Europe, you could say some of the countries have had a strong focus on reducing that flexibility that we normally see in crossing the borders, which can have an issue when you try to cross and do your job. And then, of course, that also comes back to that you certainly need to do everything through Teams. And as you also experience, need to do recruiting through Teams or Zoom or whatever instrument or software you use for that. And that is really, you could say, I think it's okay to use Teams and Zoom, especially if it's for a shorter time. But at some point, it's actually becoming a bit difficult to re-energize your employees and make them feel seen when they're seen. It's actually across a Zoom or a team call.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And Mantell Associates is a bit different to your company because it's a purely sales-driven organization, which means that 95% of our staff are working directly in sales. And working from home for us and speaking to a lot of other CEOs of recruitment organizations or headhunting firms, they found as well that motivation, drive can decrease, but actually people still enjoy it. So I think in the modern world, it's going to be a healthy mixture of both of the two. But hey, thank you so much. And I guess you've already given some really interesting hints there, but if you had to pinpoint it down to one thing about what makes Amniotics unique as an organization, what would it be?
I think the ability that we've been able to put together several nationalities. We have people from many different countries that kind of give this strong mix of different nationalities and cultures. And you could say that, of course, also sometimes means that it pushes back that people need to come together and find solutions to that. And I think that is actually a very strong cultural thing about Amniotics. About how we work.
Amazing. With having all of those cultures and people from completely different backgrounds all inside your organization as it's growing, especially in a space like the one that you're in at the moment, it can also leave kind of time for adapting and having to adapt. And of course, with you guys hiring, as I know that you have been doing rapidly as well, it means you're constantly having to integrate new staff, adapt to new things. How have you personally, as a leader, adapted to the new way of working? How have you adapted to kind of motivating staff, integrating new staff, and adapting to the space as a whole?
Well, you could say what I'm really trying to do is show the amniotic story and what we believe we can, having a patient focus and really saying that these products we are producing really targeting high unmet needs, really have a focus on the patients, on the people that needs these products, and bringing that to the people and the employee and giving everyone to understand that what we try to achieve is certainly to bring life-changing therapies to the market, and thereby trying to create this culture of that's what we are doing. And you could say, though we're coming from different cultural backgrounds, that can be a strength in such a setup.
Big time. Couldn't agree more. And you kind of touched upon the long-term objectives of the organization. What do Amniotics want to achieve in the short term and the long term as an organization?
Well, in the short term, you could say we want to escalate the products we have. We are very close to clinical trials, have submitted clinical trials applications. So we are very close to take that step into the clinical world. And then you could say from there, really grow the organization, become a whole company, having the preclinical, the production, the clinical path, and marketing coming all together. So you could say growing out from the early biotech to be a more whole company and bring it all to.
Absolutely incredible. And when you've got a kind of mission which is as clear and precise as yours, which is really kind of improving patients' lives and helping save lives in the process, it's obviously far easier to to have people who work for your organization who are passionate about that. But from the executive standpoint, what sort of culture are you trying to create amongst your working team? And has it been harder the past year?
It certainly has been harder. It certainly has been harder. No doubt about it. As we spoke to earlier, trying to bring people together where you can't sit across each other, you can't get some of that personal interaction, and trying to get that feel of people. I think that's really challenging. So that has been difficult. But on the other hand, I also think we are able to bring together the leadership team, coming together and understanding where we can use each other. I think that's also a very important message to understand, and for everyone to understand that it's always a puzzle, and it's trying to get those pieces of the puzzle fitting together. And sometimes we need to you could say adapt. But that's actually a good thing, and that's a good thing about people, that we can adapt, and we can actually adapt quite rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about using different people for different skill sets. If you had a company which was full of people who were exactly the same, you would never ever achieve anything. No. People have got to be completely different, from different cultures, from different organizations, which is hugely exciting. And actually, with everything COVID related, it's encouraged business leaders like yourself to hire people who might not be located where you are, but who have the skill set, who have that way of thinking, who have that cultural difference. So maybe that's a kind of positive which has come out of it. I love talking to people like you, and what I'm interested to find out as well is what sort of changes can you see in a positive way that are going to be coming out of the biopharmaceutical space in the upcoming years?
As you spoke to earlier, I think the whole cell and gene therapy is really one that's going to change. Also, when we look at market values of the companies coming into that space, that I think that's really gonna change the thing. Especially because these products, I think, has a better ability to treat some of the diseases that we see coming from actually becoming older. And if we look at the industrialized world, heck, most of the industrialized world have communities where we all get older, and we all need treatments for these indications, which are difficult to treat with a small molecule and antibody that doesn't really necessarily fit specifically in that.
100%. Couldn't agree more with absolutely everything, and appreciate it all. I wanted to also ask you, which is kind of in terms of sales and business development, being a smaller organization during this kind of time period, everything like that, how have you found the market? How have Amniotics found the market? How have you adapted to the market in terms of bringing on board new clients, maintaining, expanding existing clients, all of that sort of stuff?
I think there's actually, you could say, despite COVID, I think there's been a strong interest in investing in biotech and life science as a whole, certainly also in cell and gene therapy. Mm-hmm. I think that has certainly not been stopped despite COVID. And then I think what has also been showing to be good is that all of these different platforms, Teams, Zooms, what have you, enables you to get that first interaction without having to travel, because sometimes you will end up travel to the US for 2 meetings or something like that, and you spend an enormous amount of hours in a plane, followed by jet lag, and suddenly you can be more efficient. You can do that late calls, get that, and then if there's an interest, well, then you can meet over a coffee later on. But those first interaction or introduction meeting, I think that has been much easier during COVID, because everyone was like, okay, heck, we do it across a platform.
Yeah, 100%. And being a business leader as well here at Mantell Associates, I'm almost dreading the day. Obviously, I can't wait for everything to finally be over, but I'm almost dreading the day in the back of my mind where all the salespeople are going to be going abroad again. All of a sudden, you're going to have huge expenses for going to international meetings. I think a lot of business owners are going to be looking at it, and CEOs of companies are going to be looking at it going, is it necessary now? Whereas beforehand, they would have gone, okay, do it. You've got to meet that client. You've got to do that. Whereas they go, well, actually, you can do 5 to 10 business meetings in one day via Zoom. Is it more effective for you to actually stay where you are? Which is crazy. Thank you so much. And speaking on the leadership side of things, what do you think are the kind of secrets of top leadership across the industry, not only pharmaceutical, but outside of it as well, that all good leaders will have in common, and the secrets of it?
I think some of the secrets are, of course, trying to see yourself as a servant. You need to see yourself kind of a servant where you try to set the structure for your employees, of course, and then they'll need to try and fill it out. So you try and set up the structure that they can then fill, and they have the opportunity to grow. I think that's also a very important thing, that we can grow in a position, rather than saying this is a fixed setup, than saying, okay, but you can grow in different directions depending on what's your interest, what's driving you. I think that are really some of the key important things for industry leaders.
Is being also able to acting as a servant, but also finding the way to push certain employees to develop themselves further, almost.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. But you could say, being a servant, it's not necessarily, you could say, heck, you can do whatever you do. Hands off. That's not what I'm saying. It's saying being a servant, trying to create the environment, the structure that they can then grow. And then sometimes you need to push people a bit, because some tend, as we talked to before, there's different cultures. People have different personalities. Some are a bit afraid and need a little push. Some are maybe extra, and then you need to pull them back a bit and say, hey, you don't necessarily need to do that. Especially because sometimes these people will interact, and then you have a situation.
No, absolutely love it. And something you touched on earlier, which really kind of struck me on the leadership point of view, is keeping employees motivated whilst they're working from home, being able to push them whilst they're working from home when you're not having that interaction. How have you done your best to kind of manage that situation and keep them engaged to the best of your ability during this time period as well?
I think that's been really difficult, because you could say normally I would go out making sure to get that personal interaction, and suddenly you could say it's management by mail, which is very, very difficult. So you need to try and grab the phone to get that you could say verbal thing, and then finally you can do it across Teams or Zoom as we do here. But trying to encourage that together, it is difficult, and it is very difficult. But I think it's important to try and do it, and hopefully I've been successful in it.
Absolutely. And once everyone gets back together 100%, it's going to create even more unity amongst everyone, because you'll be thinking, hey, we actually got through all of this together, and it's now done, and you're going to have that strength that we once had to work that way, which will almost seem crazy. But hey, thank you so much. And one final question, which is, what advice would you give to other business leaders right now?
I think what I would think about is that, as we spoke to before, you can reduce business travel quite a lot through these medias, through Zoom and Teams and so forth. But we also need to remember that if you pull through 5 Zoom meetings across a day, you're completely wasted. It's like it's like you miss that personality interaction and the ability to read other people through their body languages and seeing their faces and so forth. So I think even though we have the ability maybe to push through more meetings due to Teams and Zoom, we also need to realize that if we do that, we need to make sure that there are bio breaks, or what you want to call it, in between, so people can get away from the screen, go and get a coffee, or do something, do a walk and get some fresh air, something like that.
Agreed. Thank you so much for all of your insight that you've shared, and for going over Amniotics as an organization and yourself. It's been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for coming on. Absolute pleasure, Care, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.